Okay. There were questions about Freddie Lee's family. I don't think we should go there
No, we shouldn't.
with the kids and
That's not.
stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate. Maybe at this point we should go to the incident.
Okay.
The incident that brought about the breakup. Like, can you describe in some detail what actually happened that day that things went foul?
Oh, I guess we can talk about. I mean, your recollection of it was pretty
Yeah,
spot
it's
on.
pretty straight on.
For people that kind of, when they listen to your recollection, I know you mentioned the word you blew up on this kid,
Right?
and the way I saw it in my mind was we were training outside, and this kid, maybe he was, what, 12, 13 years old. Um, he had seen the Freddy school and the signs with Freddy's like face on it and with the martial arts techniques. And he was just, we were doing our drills and he kept coming by and he was like, hey, you're that guy down the street in that school, oh, you do that kung fu stuff, oh, the martial arts. So he was just kind of excited to see Freddy. And I thought it was kind of cute, the kid was coming around and I mean, he kept, I think he came by one or two times, and then we're doing our drills, and then all of a sudden, I look to my right, and I see this Freddy just telling this kid, "Don't be racial, man. Don't be racial, man." And to the point where like he's kind of almost in the kid's face,
Right.
and like kind of like with a sour look on his face, and from my perspective, or on the outside, it looked like he was getting defensive to the point where like I don't know what's going on through his head, so I wouldn't say it was he hit the kid, but he was definitely getting angry.
Yeah.
And
He was trying to physically intimidate the kid, right?
exactly. And Derek came in and just kind of said, "Hey, just chill out," and the kid went away, and I was just asking why, what happened, and the kid was obviously, kind of a fan, and found out that the kid said, you're like Jackie Chan. And then it hit me because I had been reading Freddie's blog and he's been ranting about Jackie Chan. How Jackie Chan is the Chris Tucker of the Chinese people, how he makes it okay for white, Americans and people to laugh at the Chinese like they're a big joke, how he doesn't believe. Basically, he doesn't like Jackie Chan because he makes Chinese into a big joke, is what Freddie's perspective is.
Right.
But for the entire world, for pretty much everyone else, Jackie Chan is a positive figure. He doesn't promote violence, and on top of that, Jackie Chan, I mean, for Americans, especially for urban Americans who don't know much anything about martial arts, all they know is Jet Li, Jackie Chan, and Bruce Lee. So when he said, you're like Jackie Chan, I'm sure that was a compliment.
Right.
I'm sure he's like, you're like that guy,
Yeah.
And in Freddie's mind, you're like, and I don't want, you're like, insert derogatory term here.
Right.
So in Freddie's mind, but my disconnect was, that's a kid. Regardless of what he said, like, that's a kid.
Yeah.
And to this point, I mean, like you said, martial arts, and the way what Freddie told me in the beginning was, martial arts was created for the small to defend themselves against the bigger people, the bullies. He was always big on hating bullies and bullies and bullies. And at that moment, I saw a bully in Freddie.
Yeah.
And that, it was just like, wow. Like, it really, really, it caused a lot of cognitive dissonance for me. Because what I believed to that point and what I saw were two different things.
Right.
And I don't know. So I guess you can speak upon others. Is that pretty much what you saw, or?
Yeah, I mean, next was confrontation the next day, I thought about it the next next day, or not even that day.
It was a
You know, it doesn't really take, whether I work with kids or if you're an educator or not, to see a man, let alone a father, step up to a child like that. It did not sit well with me. I had to confront him, and he blew up on me, basically saying, who the heck was I to tell him what to do, that I was not his father, that he was the Sifu.
Yeah, pretty much he was a seafood. Basically, like, to the point where, along the lines of, you know what, you guys don't understand, like, when you get to the spiritual kind of enlightenment that I have, you'll understand. And then it left me with the impression of, basically, if I were to stick with this, Freddie would have wanted me to see that and agree with it, and kind of think his way.
Yeah.
If I wanted to pursue his black ring, and no matter how many times I flipped it in my head, I didn't want to do that.
Right.
I didn't want to become a person that can see that and think it's okay, because no matter any way you spin it, he's a very fit, grown man. That's a very, a kid. Even if the kid, in his defense, Freddie said the kid wasn't scared. He wasn't even like, it's not like Freddie made the kid cry or scared him. The kid was fine. He was just like, whatever. But at the same time, just the fact that
he let that get to him.
Yeah, it's a kid, and
it was just like, chill out, calm down.
And if you can't see the context, like, I mean, you're thinking from your perspective all the time of my worldview of what things are right and wrong, and Jackie Chan is a negative person to me. But if you can't see the context, then that kid doesn't know that. That kid just thinks that Jackie Chan is a hero, and he's basically calling you a hero, or an idol, and you can't see that.
Right.
Then what the heck? That's a problem,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, and that's kind of how I felt at the time too. I mean, just hearing it from Freddie, and then of course I was like online on.
Then when you tell people the story, what they called it, what's wrong with Jackie Chan? They're like, what's the point? Yeah, exactly. Tell anyone that story.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I remember being on Skype, and something was going on. I didn't quite understand what was happening, and then Freddie had a breakout with you, Eileen, and then he started screaming. I could hear him screaming at the top of his lungs from the other room, all of this stuff that you're saying, I'm the Sifu, and
yeah.
And part of the discomfort too.
I mean, it wasn't just like, he yelled at me, but he just went off for the next half hour.
Yeah.
And then he was bringing in other things too.
Yeah, there was stuff about the relationship with Jenny that came out in that, right?
Yeah, I mean, part of it too was that it had been a while before we trained with Jenny because of her jealousy and stuff like that. And he was saying, okay, like Eileen's best friend, quit because basically Jenny called her or left her a bunch of voicemails for some reason, and it just scared her away. So the thing was that like Jenny was very jealous, and to the point where like it was uncomfortable.
Right.
For females to be around Freddie or try to even learn in a threatening environment, because when you're not thinking that way about somebody and someone's trying to make you feel like you're doing something wrong, it's like, okay, I'm a terrible person for Freddie showing me how to punch something, so he's touching my hand to show me how to punch properly. Oh, that's wrong. He's clearly flirting with me. There's something wrong there.
I mean, it got to the point where even, I remember telling Freddie, I felt uncomfortable being on camera because he would tell us, Jenny would be looking through like the camera, and she mentioned how one of the Todais standing behind him at the time looked like something else. And even like small things like that, I didn't even want to be on camera for it.
Yeah, she would basically watch all his videos and look for reasons to kind of argue with him and give him a hard time. And
right.
The thing was,
so these things that Freddie was experiencing, he was feeding back to us. This is what we heard. And so it's like, okay, what can I do to avoid that? I don't want to be anywhere near the camera. Like,
and it got to a point where like he's like, all right, I'm just not gonna have her on the training. You know, it's fine. She's gonna keep it separate.
And when he had like these lectures, he would bring the whole class together. Like he would make it a class session to tell us, like, this is what was going to go on.
Yeah.
Like she was not going to be around. Like, I don't know if he remembers this or if he recalls this, but he made this a class session numerous times.
Right.
And
He sat everybody down and
just said, hey guys, this is what's going to happen from now on. Just let you know, this, you know, it's going to be this way it is, and just because of what's going on with me, like it's not you guys, it's just. So he tried to mitigate, moderate, and try and his best he could to balance it. But then, so back to the situation that day. He actually, after all the discomfort, and he's like, okay, we're not going to train with Jenny. And that day, like, he had, like, I think it was an event or something outside. What was my birthday?
Yeah, that was something.
Okay, anyway, so basically, he brought Jenny, you know, and did drills with Jenny, and you know, it was a little uncomfortable because it was like, okay, it was the first time we saw her in a while after all this discomfort. And we were okay. We were just like, all right, you know, that's fine. You know, we tried to do as best we could. It was uncomfortable, and then that happened. You know, and that kid was there, and I think even she was getting annoyed by the kid at some point when he was coming around and trying to talk to Freddie, saying that, oh, you're that guy, and she was like, no, can we go over there? You know, we're trying to train here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that had something to do with the situation as well, but. So when you approached him and you mentioned, is Jenny going to be training with us too? I think that's what also fuels his fire. Was not just the kid and that whole situation, but also questioning of Jenny. Because when I walked in, all I heard was, "What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?" Jenny, you want me to tell my wife that she can't come train with us now? That's my wife. Da, 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 da. And it's like, dude, a week ago you were saying that she wasn't going to be in the training, and now she is, and it's like, okay, so why are you always contradicting yourself? That's what I want to know, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, prior to that, too, I think the first time we had saw him, because we left in August, that was also Waleed's birthday. You know, we had made plans with other Todais to go across the street and to plan this surprise party for him. And the first time we saw her, she came in with a cake. And we were just like, well, everyone was really surprised. So I think those were just the two instances, too, that brought her.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but looking at the situation here, I mean, one of the things that's pretty obvious is that Jenny's interruptions into FMK in a sense have been a big problem. I mean,
yeah, and it's just like, and I don't want people to bash her because she's not a completely bad person. I think she has a lot of qualities that make her a very kind and sweet person. It's just she has that jealousy in her that it takes over her sometimes, and it kind of.
Yeah, I mean, same here. Honestly,
if it weren't for that, I mean, she would have been. She's a pleasant person. She's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just take this jealousy outside because I don't want to bash Jenny for this jealousy. I mean, this is Jenny. She has a strong attitude. You know, let's say outside of Kung Fu, I knew her as a person, and the person that you see in the videos is the same person you'll see in person as well. You know, she's very friendly. She'll cook for you.
She speaks her mind. Like when we go to a store or something, she's the kind of lady that will say hi to everyone and make friends with, you know, the people working there, which is kind of surprising because most people don't even do that.
Right.
You know, so she's very hospitable. If you're by her house, she always wants to like make you something, and her passion is food. Like Jenny loves to.
Yeah, she'll go out of her way. She'll go out of her way to cook for you after class. You know, that's what brought us to come after and hang out with them and got close to the family was her cooking.
Right.
And with the kids. So aside from that, she was a great person. You know, I could honestly, she was like a girlfriend to me.
It just
I brought her along with my friends, and it was a great time when we were together. But when it came down to business and FMK, it did kind of, I don't know, it hurt for me because, I could be her best friend, do all these things for her too, vice versa. But I could be, I don't know, having a conversation with Freddie about the workout, and it was as if I did something wrong.
Yeah, it didn't matter how much time you spent or how much trust you try to build with her. It's like she didn't trust anybody with Freddie. She didn't trust anyone with her husband.
Right.
Because in her mind, it's like, that's, she,
I mean, it doesn't even have to be a female, too. It could have been like a guy taking up his time.
And
yeah.
I guess in a sense, like, part of maybe her jealousy isn't just Freddie and, worrying that he'll cheat on her. It's also...
I understand, too, that she spent a lot of the time in the house,
with the kids.
With the kids. So that I understand, when Freddie gets home, it was back to work for him, making YouTube and making videos. So I can defend Jenny that, yeah, that was a part of the jealousy, too, with struggling to making time for the kids and balancing work.
Yeah.
Yeah. My own sense of Jenny is that she's very keen socially. Like she notices the nuances in people's communications and what they're doing. Like I know that she was on to me for a long time as kind of there were things that I didn't agree with Freddie. There were opinions and attitudes and expressions and such that I didn't agree with, and I know that Jenny was onto that for a long time, where Freddie didn't cue into the differences as strongly, or he was just willing to let them go. Where to Jenny it was a sticky point in this kind of a thing. I know that like Freddie told me about early on in his relationship with Jenny, there was an insistence that he cut ties with a female friend that he had that was very close to him, and it seemed like the jealousy continued from there. But she was so keen on the little nuances and such. I mean, in terms of like, I picked up that she was registering my nuances in a way that it made me kind of think, okay, if she's getting jealous, maybe there's a reason behind some of her jealousy. Maybe there's not. As far as I knew from Freddie, he wasn't doing anything that would jeopardize their relationship or be untrue to Jenny or anything like that. But do you think there's any basis behind her jealousies?
As far as I know, there was nothing that ever went on within the code eyes with Freddie at all. No.
I would talk to Freddie, and honestly, he never mentioned anything, and I think we had a good trust with each other. Whereas, anything were going on, I'm sure he could feel safe telling me. He loves his wife, he loves his kids.
Right.
He wouldn't jeopardize that.
So in one sense, he seems to be kind of like he's willing to sacrifice the FMK business to maintain his good relations with Jenny, even though they're not, though there's something unhealthy there. And I don't fault him for this or anything like that, but some of the neurosis that we're seeing really derives from their relationship more than anything else.
That's a possibility. I think that that's that could be another factor, but I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think that there's a lot of complex layers to what's going on, and I really wouldn't know at this point what he's going through, because I look at even his new channel, and I just it's completely different from what I used to see. So I don't know what's going on, and
Right.
but yeah, I wouldn't be able to comment on that.